some of you will be calling on some of you later on. Today our program will be a memorial to the Smith brothers, who was in the Civil War and from this area. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about, that people I've mentioned it to and talked with around the area, they have heard of them, but they don't know much about them. So this is one reason too why we had decided to try to have a program up here and get some information out on what type history we do have here concerning the Civil War. And I have an article or a paper with some facts on the family of the Smith brothers that was submitted by Mrs. Marie Henson. And then I have an obituary of their mother that came from, I assume though, one of the Washington County papers of this time. And Mr. Harwell may know something about 1893. I don't know if anything was, if the same paper was in existence then or not.
I called the state Alabama archives on this because I wanted them to send me, the actual copy of it better than what, Miss Marie had that she sent. But they said they did not have a paper back that early on Washington County. So I don't know where the paper even exists. Now, Miss Marie told me, says it might not even been from a Washington County news, but it was in some of her parents' things. So.
Well, the information she gave us, it was 4 brothers who fought in the war, and all 4 were killed, and then one of them is buried here. And the background, which she is a descendant of the Blunt line, I believe, of the family. So I'm going over some of the family history, and then Mr. Pearson, whose grandfather was in the same regiment, the 32nd Alabama Infantry, is going to explain the military part of it, where the battles and the information concerning where these brothers took part and where they were killed. And of course, the Civil War started in 1861, and the first battle was fought, the firing on Fort Sumter was in April of 1861, and then the first battle was, June or July, at the Battle of Bull Run, and some call it Manassas, and then it went on until April of 1865. The primary causes of the Civil War was the first major cause that had been building up for a number of years was the tariff issue. And usually most wars go back to something that deals with money. And of course the South being an agricultural society and the North an industrial society, well, you have an immediate conflict, and in the South having to buy products from either the North or from Europe would choose the cheapest place to buy. And the cheapest place to buy was in Europe. Well, when the North had the most population, so the North was able to dominate Congress. And Congress was able to vote tariffs into existence, which jacked up the price of buying goods from overseas. So then the Southerners were forced to buy from Northern manufacturers at what they considered to be an unnecessarily high price, and they felt robbed if they bought from Europe. So you had this conflict. Plus then you decide a sound financial reason to go to war and kill folks and destroy property. You need an emotional. And the emotional and spiritual side of it was the slave issue. And this inflamed and touched other areas. But many of the people who fought in the war were very much like most of us. They had no real strong opinions so far as being mad enough about anything to fight, other than they were just told that it's time to go fight. And the Smith brothers from this area was in a volunteer outfit, and one of the major issues too that kept coming up was states' rights. And as you remember, Robert E. Lee, who took over the command of the Southern armies, was offered command of the Union armies, but the reason he took over was because he said, first, he was from Virginia, and he put Virginia ahead of the United States. And the idea of states' rights at that time was a very prominent issue, and one that was not actually settled until way after the Civil War. So, you know, many of the reasons for fighting, many of the reasons for dying sometimes don't make sense to most of the common people, but they get it caught up in it. And these young men from here going up north and into Tennessee and Virginia and then dying up there was probably not involved very much in the slave issue or the tariff issue. They were like most of my forefathers, probably out here scratching in the dirt just trying to raise a garden and make a living, but someone said we're supposed to go fight. So they join and go. John Smith, the father of these soldiers, was first married to, I'm not sure about the pronunciation, Beatty Ann Howell. They were married on February 11, 1830, and they were parents of 3 children. John Thomas Smith, who was born in 1831, and later he wed a lady named Elizabeth Thompson. And then the second child born was Private Joseph James Smith. He was born April 16, 1833. And then a third child, Sarah Ann Smith, was born in 1836, who later wed a Felix Blunt. And then Beatty Ann Howell must have died because in 1837, on November the 2nd, John Smith married a Nancy Blunt. And Nancy was a sister of James K. Blunt and the daughter of Frederick and Mary Blunt. She and John were the parents of 3 sons. And the first of these was Lieutenant William G. Smith, who was born December 17, 1838, and he died August 1st, 1863, which was right in the middle of the war. And the second was Sergeant Frederick B. Smith, born May 20, 1841, and died July 6, 1862. And then Lieutenant Arthur C. Smith, born April 22, 1844, and died November 25, 1863. The 1850 census lists John Smith with Mary as his wife and all 6 children. The 1860 census lists John Smith and Nancy with the 3 youngest children. No record has been found of any of these 4 men ever being married in Washington County. The Smith family must have settled between Bigby and Covington. Some of the children of John Thomas Smith lived on each side of Pine Barren Creek near the place where the Reynolds family now lives. There is a Smith Range Cemetery near Bigby on the cutoff road from Three Forks Church to Frankville. Most of the markers are gone, so no one will ever know just who was buried there. In the obituary for Mrs. Nancy Blunt Smith, this is 1893. Mrs. Nancy Blunt Smith, wife of John Smith, an old and respected resident of this county, died at the home of Mrs. M.L. Raines near Bigby on the 25th day of May, 1893. She was born in North Carolina, November 18, 1801, was united with the church in 1828, was married to John Smith in 1837. She was a consistent member of the church 65 years and was beloved by all who knew her. So this is the background on the family of these men and the one who is buried here. And at this time, Mr. Theodore Pearson will come and tell us some about the military outfits and some of the battles that they were in and some of his kin people who was also in the same outfit.
Symbols of the Confederacy, and this is the scroll of the muster roll of Wilson's Guards of St. Stephen's, of which Lieutenant A.C. Smith was second lieutenant. And it is here, and here's the names of the officers, the sergeants, the corporals, and all the men in A.C. Smith, Lieutenant A.C. Smith's company. These are the several flags of the Confederacy. The first one and the one that flew over the Capitol in Montgomery when Jefferson Davis was elected president is this one, called the Stars and Bars. And that was the first one of the flags. And it was, as you will see, so near the flag of the United States that when the armies of the different, especially the South, saw an army coming with the flags, they didn't know whether it was a friend or foe. So they changed the flag 3 or 4 different times, and one in the middle is the one you've heard of, is the Bonnie Blue flag. And then they, this flag, but it's some ways didn't serve in the same way with this one, because it had a lot of color in it that resembled the United States flag. And so they finally decided on what's known as the battle flag, Confederacy, and that's the one that Governor George Wallace placed over the Capitol during the 100th year commemoration of the war between the states in 1865. And I'm glad, for one, I'm glad it's still up there. So those are the 5 flags of the Confederacy. Some of the people say that this put the flag that the Stars and Bars over the Capitol, which was the flag that was there when President Jefferson Davis was elected when we moved to Richmond, that would solve the problem of some of the people objecting to the battle flag of the Confederacy flying above the Capitol, but I don't believe that Euclides, Representative Alvin Jones, whatever flag you put up there. I'm a life member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and this is a scroll that was given to me, and I consider it quite an honor some time ago. This company was named for Levin Jefferson Wilson of St. Stephen's, who financed the organization of the company at St. Stephen's. The county courthouse where it was organized is still there. The county courthouse built in 1854. All of you see it when you pass it every day. It's named for him because he outfitted the company and gave all the officers engraved swords. And Bobby Bowling, Dr. Bobby Bowling's widow, still has the sword, engraved sword of Captain Bowling, because he was severely wounded at the Battle of Murfreesboro, but was able to get home with his sidearms, and that's the only reason that sword is still in existence. And I have, and I forgot to bring it today, I have my great-grandfather was captain of this company, Robert Leroy Bowling, and I have his pistol and a revolver, and I forgot to bring it today, but he did get home with his sidearms. This company, when it was organized at St. Stephen's, Captain Ash was named captain. T.P. Ash, he was a school teacher at St. Stephen's. But when they organized the regiment in Mobile, this company was started in St. Stephen's in '61, and then wound up in early '62 in April. They were incorporated in 32nd Alabama Infantry, and Captain Ash was promoted to major, but he later resigned and didn't take any part in the war. And these three men moved up. First Lieutenant Robert Leroy Bowling moved up to captain. Second Lieutenant Jesse C. Clements, who lived right over here where Noel Clements lived. I think D. Clements still lives over there. Isn't that right, George? Does
Right.
D still live over there?
Yeah.
And third Lieutenant A.C. Smith moved up to second lieutenant, and that's how they went to war. In the Battle of Murfreesboro, Captain Bowling was severely wounded, and Lieutenant Jesse Clements, Noah called him Uncle Jess. I think he was Noah Clements' great uncle. He was killed and had left the company in command of a 19-year-old boy, Arthur C. Smith, and he was killed at the Battle of Missionary Ridge. So the company lost all of its officers pretty early in the war, and several of the men on here were killed also. I know that what is it? John Beach was killed. How about
John Beach,
Israel? Was
Israel
Israel Beach
Beach.
killed too? And man from Frankfurt, Elijah Grenade was killed in Ringgold, Georgia, and several others. And they participated. Battles at Bridgeport, Laverne, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Jackson, Mississippi, Chickamauga. And after Chickamauga, they lost so many men, the 32nd Alabama was merged with the 58th Alabama. And after that, they served under the officers of the 58th Alabama. And they fought at Missionary Ridge, Resaca, New Hope, Kennesaw Mountain, Georgia, turned to Tennessee for the battles at Columbia, Frankfort, and Nashville, and at the Battle of Spanish Fort near Mobile. The unit was surrendered at Meridian, Mississippi, May the 7th, 1865. And this is the group now that sponsored this scroll, St. Stephen's Lodge, number 81. Three accepted nations respectively dedicates this scroll as a memorial to the Confederate soldiers whose names are listed hereon, many of whom, including Captain Ash and Lieutenant Bowling, were members of this lodge. One of the men of this company, Thomas H. Bailey, was released from the Army after about 2 years because he was elected sheriff of Washington County. So he was one of the strongest and man who you might say was the hero of that company of those that lived was Gideon J. Sullivan. He was a great-grandfather of one of our members. I thought he did Doc Sullivan, D.K. Sullivan of Wagerville. And it is said when orders would be given to advance at the double quick, he'd run to the head of the company, grab Captain Bowling on his shoulders and carry him forward, apparently without any effort. And he was on detached duty as a sapper and a miner from his main command, also a sapper and a miner in order to dig tunnels under the fortifications of the enemy. And sometimes they get a chance to blow it up. But anyway, I want to read you a little bit about him. I wrote this paper several years ago on Wilson's Guard of St. Stephen's or the travail of Company A, 32nd Alabama Infantry. I might give you also this information about the pay that the people got. Now, the Captain Bowling received pay in the amount of $130 a month. The rate for the first lieutenant was $90 a month, and third lieutenants $80 a month. The pay for the enlisted man was $11 per month. With many thousands of men under arms, it's most remarkable that the Confederate government was able to meet its payroll for at least the first 2 years of the conflict. The last year of the conflict, they didn't pay anybody anything. My grandfather, Theodore Bowling, was in the war later, and he was asked a question on the questionnaire, when were you last paid? His answer was never. He didn't get any pay the whole time he was in it. Now this pay $11 a month for the enlisted man. $11 a month in those days is pretty good money. And I remember when I was a boy, people worked on the farm $15 a month. And so I just wanted, and all the causes of why the people fought, and Franklin brought out some good points, but nobody's brought out yet that a lot of these men joined for the money and also for their pension. It was in, you see, every day or two, you see on TV, be all you can be, join the army, be all you can be, and they get pretty good money for joining the army these days. Well, $11 a month was pretty good to some of these fellas, even married people. They said, we'll get $11 a month, board, and our clothes, and our food. We can send some money home to our women and children. And that point, for as I know, has never been brought out, although that's a point that the Army uses today, that they could get into the Army, make some money, and advance, and see the war. I think that was one reason that we had a lot of just ordinary enlisted men joining the Army, and not because of any great cause. I was going to tell you something about Mr. Kip Sullivan. Right? He was one of the heroes of that regiment, in my opinion. Perhaps the most remarkable man in the company was Gideon J. Sullivan, 32 years of age and head of a large family. He owned a very small farm on Bassett's Creek, but his main support for his family was working for wages in any public work available. At the time that Wilson's Guard was recruited, he and his brother-in-law Alexander Lane Jr. were working on railroad construction in Baldwin County. Both men left their work and enlisted in Wilson's Guards. Private Sullivan was a man of great strength. As I mentioned a while ago, one of his great-grandsons is a regular attender of our association. Private Sullivan was a man of great strength, and during the conflict he seemed immune to enemy fire, disease, or hardships. Even in military prison during the last year of the war, it was said of him he could eat the fat. In other words, whatever they gave him, he could eat it. There wasn't much of it, but he ate it and thrived on it, something that few could do. He became color bearer for his company, and when his regiment waded the Tennessee River at Bridgeport, he carried Captain Bowling across the river on his shoulders. Also on the march, when orders were received to advance into Double Quick, he would hasten to the front of the company, hoist Captain Bowling upon his shoulders, and carry him forward seemingly without effort. In January and February of 1863, he was on detached duty as a sapper and miner by order of General Hardee. In January 1864, he was reported on duty with the Pioneer Company of General Bates' division. His luck ran out, though, in the Battle of Nashville. The 32nd, 58th Regiment, and 3 other regiments formed a brigade of General Holtzclaw. And on the second day of this decisive battle, that's the Battle of Nashville, when the Army of Tennessee was decisively defeated, never very effective after that. This division of brigade he was in, those stood for him and repelled repeated assaults. General Holtzclaw stated in his report, "I have seen most of the battlefields of the West, but never missed or dead men thicker than in front of my two right regiments. The great masses and disorder of the enemy enabled the left to rake them in flank, while in right, with coolness unexampled, scarcely threw away a shot. The enemy at last broke and fled in wild disorder. How the complete collapse of Hood's left flank caused the position during the late afternoon of December the 16th to become engulfed and surrounded by advancing Federals. A large number of men were taken prisoners. Among the prisoners from Company A was pilots Gideon J. Sullivan and Elijah J. Bailey. Elijah Bailey, he was kin to all these Baileys down at Wakerville. So many of these men have descendants left in Washington County. They were sent immediately to Camp Chase Military Prison in Columbus, Ohio. Here they were joined on March 12, 1865 by Theodore C. Bowling. That's my grandfather and the man for whom I'm named. The oldest son of our former Captain R.L. Bowling. Private Bowling of Rucker's Escort Forest Cavalry, veteran at age 17, had fallen from his horse with typhoid fever. Following the terrific night fight of December the 16th on Granny White Pike, when Chalmers' division of Forest Cavalry checked Wilson's Union Cavalry and saved Hood's retreating infantry. And I've always wondered about this. He was taken in near Franklin by a family named Ball, B-A-U-G-H, and was being cared for when captured and placed under guard. Through the kindness of some unknown federal soldier, he was allowed to remain at the Ball residence. After a long illness, he became convalescent and was sent to Camp Chase. We will not attempt to record the hardships of the Confederate soldiers in this military prison during the last months of the war. So it's covered by a number of other books. One of them, The Terrors and Horrors of Prisoners' Life, or 6 months in the prison of Camp Chase, Ohio, by William Hiram Duff in 1970. All that now remains of Camp Chase, and I visited that prison camp some years ago. Let's see. All that remains of now Camp Chase is the well cared for Confederate cemetery containing the graves of 2,199 Confederate soldiers. The men of Company A reported only one act of kindness while there. In the late spring of 1865, the prisoners, hungry for something green, were reaching for grass at the extreme outer edge of the compound. All the grass inside had already been eaten up by them. A guard on duty pushed some grass with his foot, pushed it over like that, so a short-armed Confederate could get some grass, and that was the only act of kindness they saw while they were there. They were released June 8th in 1865. Two of these being here, and my grandfather, who was with Forrest later on, they were released on taking the oath of allegiance, and they had to make their way home as best they could. Walk mostly. To give you an idea how these people looked a little bit, the federal government kept a record of the men when they turned them loose. It said Elijah Bailey, Private Company A, 32nd Regiment, Alabama Infantry, place of residence, Washington County, complexion dark, hair dark, eyes blue, height 6 feet, age 27 years. G.J. Sullivan, he signed his paper with an X. He couldn't write. Private Company A, 32nd Regiment, place of residence, Washington County, complexion dark, hair dark, eyes blue, height 6 feet 2 3/4 inches, age 35. And then at Theodore C. Bowling, private company, 7th Regiment, Rucker's Escort, Forest Cavalry, place of residence, Washington County, complexion fair, hair light, eyes dark, age 17, height 9 1/2 inches. You notice he didn't give the weight. I think this is right interesting on the way that they made their way home. I know we had for a few days in our home, Dr. Peter Avery, years ago, who was brought there by my cousin, John Bowling, who was a professor of history at Troy State. And he paid me a great compliment after reading this paper. He said when he read this, boy, tears came in his eyes, and he was a British professor at Christ College in Oxford, England. Upon that release, these 3 soldiers from St. Steve's made their way home as best they could, mainly afoot. They reported they had a very hard time until they reached Kentucky. After that, the people were good to them, an example being as follows. They were allowed passage on a river steamer for a part of the journey home, but being ashamed of their unkempt appearance, they isolated themselves from the other passengers. Now, they were also probably full of lies, because when my grandfather got there and went into the compound where they were to stay at night, the lice started crawling up on him, and he tried to keep them off, and then Mr. Kip Sullivan and others said, "Let them cover you, Theodore, let them cover you." They'd seen men go crazy trying to keep the lice off of them. So the only thing to do was just let them cover you and be done with it. So they were ashamed of their unkempt appearance, and they isolated themselves from the other passengers. That was on the river steamer. They were given food which they spread upon the deck, seating themselves around it. Upon learning their identity, the steamboat captain strode forward, kicked the food overboard, and took the ragged soldiers to his own table, treating them as honored guests. Private Gideon Sullivan had carried his Captain R.L. Bowling on his shoulders across the streams he forded on the way into Tennessee 3 years earlier. He now carried his captain's ill cavalryman's son, T.C. Bowling, across the streams on the way home. Following his death in 1914, St. Steve's Lodge, number 81, erected a modest tombstone over Private Sullivan's grave in Clearwater Cemetery on Bassett's Creek. His epitaph could be shared by many of his comrades, and we have the grave of the Smith brothers out here, and I put a Confederate flag on it before the meeting started, and I'm sure we're going out there afterwards. This is on his tombstone. To our brother, G.J. Sullivan, a Confederate soldier, a Mason, and a man in every sense of the word. All share the epitaph inscribed under the bronze statue of the Confederate soldier facing south, above the arch at Camp Chase Cemetery. It is but one word, Americans. That was the conclusion of a paper I read some years ago for the Alabama Historical Association. And I believe right on that covers what I would have to say about A.C. Smith and his company.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Does anyone else have any information on any of these? At this time, we'll go out to the cemetery and place the wreath. And we were going to have someone to play taps. Gene Shell came up, had an emergency, and had to go out of town, and we tried to find some of the others. And most of the band directors are out of town now, so we're not going to be able to have that. We do thank Mr. Harold Crouch for coming and videoing for us, and we have Tommy Fuller here, one of our county agents, and he is a member of the, tell us the name of the...
I'm a member of the SCV, same as Mr. Pearson. I went in the same camp he did in Mobile, but I've since transferred to Groveville because I don't have to drive far. But I know the son of Confederate veterans.
Mr. Platt,
Appreciate you
talking
having me.
about this sentence, we have here in the audience quite a number of people who are related to Lieutenant A.C. Smith.
Do any of you know for sure, or any close relation? I'd like to get you on the video if we could. Y'all would stand up, but can you get them, some of the relatives of Smith, and then go ahead and have Ms. Louise Boykin and, excuse me, Ms. Melton from Jackson with us. If y'all turn around, please, and if y'all will, give your names and tell how you're connected to Smith, and we'll start with Ms. Melton.
I am Nell Reed Carpenter Smith. Nell Reed Carpenter Gold. And these men were my great uncle on my father's side.
I'm Melvin Carpenter. It was the same relationship. They were my grandmother's uncle.
Said I'm Herschel Carpenter. I'm Nell's brother, and they were my great uncles also.
Ms. Melton, turn around.
Now go to Melton from Jackson. And Smiths were my great uncles. That's in the Breeze.
Yeah.
And I'm Louise Smith Boykin, and I'm the same relation to this gentleman as our brother.
Thank you.
Cut that off, yeah.
You want-
Like David, that's just a good
somebody else.
Mr. Pearson coming. We're going to place the wreath, Miss Edith, if you will, officers. And then Mr. Tommy Fuller has a poem he's going to read about it.
Why don't you ask
Yeah,
some of
the
these
Ken-
great nephews and nieces?
Whenever
The
you're
Ken
having
folks
one
come on in
up
with
here,
us, if you
always
will.
get folks-
Some of the kinfolks ought to be up here.
If y'all will take a moment, I'll go. We're going to place the wreath and then and then Tommy will read the poem. Please step on up too with it. Wait a minute, please.
This is a short poem, rather it's an ode that was written for the dedication of the Confederate Cemetery at Charleston, South Carolina, either in the late 1800s or
A little louder, Johnny.
This is an ode that was written for the occasion of the dedication of the Confederate Cemetery in Charleston, South Carolina. It was written by Henry Timrod, and he was unfortunate in that he died before the dedication, and somebody had to deliver the ode for him, but it's very short and it's very appropriate to the poem. Sleep sweetly in your humble graves, sleep martyrs of a fallen cause, though yet no marble column craves the pilgrim here to pause. From seeds of laurel in the earth, the blossom of your fame is blown, and somewhere, waiting for its birth, the shaft is in the stone. Meanwhile, behalf the tardy years, which hold in trust your story tuned, your mothers and your sisters bring their tears, and these memorial blooms. Your shade shall smile more proudly on these wreaths today than when some cannon-molded pile shall overlook this place. Stoop, angels, hither from the skies. There's no holier spot of ground than where defeated valor lies by morning beauty crowned.
No, I have enough pictures, thank you. They were pretty close.
This is a program on the St. Stephen's Nutrition Center being opened in St. Stephen's, Alabama. It's the first public building opened in St. Stephen's in over 100 years. Thank you.
House, and hope you make yourself at home, and we'll have the opening prayer. Take a little time.
These words are from the Gospel of Luke. Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you. And if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Jesus fed the hungry. And the folks at St. Stephen's are committed to do the same thing. May we pray.
Pleased we are to have all of you here today for the ribbon cutting and the dedication of the St. Stephen's Nutrition Center. There have been a lot of people who have worked very hard for this day, and it is a special day for all of us. We're doing something together for our people. That's important. We have today with us some very special people who are going to be cutting the ribbon for us in a few moments. When we look down the line here, there's some pretty important folks as far as the St. Stephen's community is concerned. Mr. Melly Palmer, it's good to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fanny Donaldson, Fanny here. Mrs. Madeline Stabler. Mr. Rufus Beats, Mr. Coleman Mosley, Mr. L.J. Williams, Mrs. Matilda Abston. Now normally we have the people on this side of the ribbon and cut it before we go in, but they are such a nice looking bunch, Mike. We hope that you'll be able to get their picture, and that's why we've got them on the other side, where you can see their faces. So at this time, they'll cut the ribbon. And after the ribbon cutting, then we'll all go inside and get seated. All right. Way out of the way. Okay. All right, look up. Look up, look up, look up, look up. Not good. Look up. Look up as you go. There you go. Did you get them all in there? All right. Go inside.
I did want to bring a few things in, our plans and everything that we've done to start with. And back then, there's been some changes, few changes. But if I told anybody while I was carrying around for them, anything that didn't tally up, I'm sorry, I didn't have nothing to do with the change, little changes of the government, don't you see? And I hope everybody understands it. And it wasn't as easy as some people would think. It was hard from the beginning. And I want to, one thing I want to do is the courtesy that the mission showed us and everything. When we would go out there, we kind of felt like them time to with them posing, but they were good to us. And they recognized. And the man, that's about as much as I know to say. The man that kind of brought this program in was the man I was in cahoots with, and that fellow thinks you got yours right over on that judge. And I would like for him to say a few short words. And Judge Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Beach, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here on this occasion because it is a milestone for the community of St. Stephen's, and they've worked very, very hard. I did my best in the beginning to prepare them for the stumbling blocks that they were going to run into along the way. I knew they were there, and they did not. But I'll say again, I am delighted that we've gotten this far with the Nutrition Center for St. Stephen's. And I certainly hope that y'all enjoy it, and if we can help you in any way in the future on any program, I'll condition you again on that, because when you start a program, you're working with a multitude of people, and you don't have to say so just over a very small part of it. And you've got to get your forces together, and then you've got to get them to agree, and then you've got to qualify all the way up and down the line. That's the way it is with London Baptist. That's the way it is with us on everything that we undertake. And I knew that you were probably going to be disappointed to some degree in the beginning. The same thing was true with the Waverville Nutrition Center. But I think if y'all will be honest with me, you'll say that what I told you was as dear the truth as I knew how to tell. And I certainly thank y'all for inviting me up here today. Thank you very much.
As all of you know, St. Stephen's has a long and very proud tradition. And we're very fortunate to have with us this afternoon Mr. Wayne Blackwell, who's president of the Washington County Historical Society. And he's going to say a few things to us about St. Stephen's. Wayne?
Well, I'm glad to be here and glad anytime to be able to talk about Washington County. Father grew up here, and I know 3 generations of my people lived here, and it's a special place. And of course, St. Stephen's is probably one of the most special places in Washington County. And what you've done here today is an act of love, because anything that makes progress or anything that does good for people has the Spirit of Jesus Christ in it, and Jesus Christ is love. So what you've put forth here is something that's going to show love to people for many years to come. And this is something our Historical Society tries to do too. We try to preserve what we have here. And I was asked to say a few words about Old St. Stephen's and about the development of St. Stephen's. And I've made it as brief as I can. I'm not going into a lot of names, but basically the first beginnings of what we know of as St. Stephen's started in 1783 when Spain got this area back from England. And this was from the Treaty of Paris that ended the war with England. And then in 1789, Spain built the first fort here. Now, why did they pick this spot? You know, why is St. Stephen's here? The reason for it was that the river got shallow north of here in a place called McGrew Shoals. and the small sailing ships that brought supplies and the trade goods up could go no further up the river. Plus, there was a huge granite bluff out here that was a great place on the river to build a town, and the Indians had used it for many years. So this was the spot that commanded the river, and it was as far as the ships could go, so the Spaniards decided to build their northernmost trading post here. And it was called Fort Stevens, and this was named after the Spanish governor of West Florida, Stephen Miro. And then later on, a Catholic church was started here, and it was called the Church of Transfiguration of St. Stephen's. And around the fort and around the church, a small settlement grew, and then it grew into a town. And they finally dropped the term Fort Stevens and started calling it St. Stephen's because of the influence of the Catholic Church. And of course, the bluff where all of this originally stood is no longer here because it was quarried away several years ago. In 1796, the population of St. Stephen's was 287. And of course, this included blacks, whites, and a few Spaniards and a few Frenchmen were left, and there was even, I think, one Swede here. In 1799, a treaty between the U.S. and Spain resulted in Spain evacuating St. Stephen's, and the United States Army occupied St. Stephen's. And Ms. Stabler was telling me a while ago that some of her ancestors laid the first bricks in 1799 here for the first paved streets in St. Stephen's. In 1800, Washington County was created. The west boundary was the Pearl River, and the east boundary was the Chattahoochee River, or what we know today as the Georgia border. Some people even referred to it from time to time, and even at an earlier period, as being the 14th colony. It was so large. And of course, St. Stephen's was the largest town in Washington County. In 1804, the first post office was established in St. Stephen's. And then in 1809, St. Stephen's became the county seat of Washington County. And the reason for this was that Baldwin County was incorporated in 1809. Wakefield, which we commonly know today as McIntosh, was the capital of Washington County up until 1809, and at that time it became a part of Baldwin County, or the part called Wakefield, and then they moved the seat to St. Stephen's. In 1811, the Mississippi Territorial Legislature chartered the first school in the area. And this was in St. Stephen's. It was called Washington Academy. In 1813 and 14, the Creek Indian War was in progress, but St. Stephen's was not attacked and was not in a lot of danger, even though a number of people across the river in the area they called the Lower Tombigbee Settlement was killed. And the reason why St. Stephen's was preserved was the friendship with the Choctaw Indians. The Choctaw Indians' territory included the west bank of the Tombigbee River. In 1815, the first newspaper was published in St. Stephen's. It was called the Hallion and Tombigbee Advertiser. And then in 1816, two events occurred that contributed to the decline of Old St. Stephen's. Number one, the Choctaw Trading House was moved several miles up the river, and the county seat was moved a few miles west of here to a place called Washington Courthouse. In 1817, Congress divided the Mississippi Territory, and the western part became the state of Mississippi, and the eastern part became the Alabama Territory. And then William White Bibb was appointed the governor of Alabama the governor of the Alabama Territory, and St. Stephen's was the capital of the Alabama Territory. So St. Stephen's was the first territorial capital of Alabama. And in 1818, on January 19, the Alabama Territory Assembly met for its first session in St. Stephen's. 14 new counties came out of this session: Watauga, Blount, Morgan, Bibb, Conecuh, Dallas, Franklin, Lawrence, Lauderdale, Limestone, Marengo, St. Clair, Shelby, and Tuscaloosa. Tom Bigby Bank and the St. Stephen's Steamboat Company was chartered during the first session of the Alabama Territorial Legislature in St. Stephen's. The session lasted 26 days and met at the Douglas Hotel. John Crowell of St. Stephen's was elected as the Alabama delegate to the U.S. Congress. He was Alabama's first congressman. The second and last session of the Alabama Territorial Assembly met in November of 1818 in St. Stephen's. From that session, Cahaba was selected to be the new state capital of the new state of Alabama, which was established the next year in 1819. In 1819, a man from St. Stephen's, or two men, one named Israel Pickens and one named Henry Hitchcock, represented Washington County at the Constitutional Convention held in the temporary state capital at Huntsville. Henry Hitchcock of St. Stephen's became Alabama's first Attorney General and later the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. In 1821, Israel Pickens of St. Stephen's was elected the governor of Alabama. During the 1820s, shallow draft paddle wheel steamboats began operating on the Tom Bigby, and the pilots of these vessels learned how to navigate the shoals, and this moved the navigation and trading north of St. Stephen's, and this was one of the major reasons that contributed to the decline of the settlement of St. Stephen's. And then later it was moved on out to the crossroads and began to grow where the present day St. Stephen's stands. But as you can see, we have contributed from this area: Governor of the state of Alabama, Attorney General, Supreme Court, Chief of the Supreme Court, and many firsts that came from this group of people in this area here. So we do have something to be proud of, and I was fortunate enough, along with Mr. Mike Breedlove and several others, to be a part of Governor Hunt's Restoration Committee for Old St. Stephen's. We've been in meeting since, 1988? And so we're working on trying to get something done so Old St. Stephen's will not be forgotten. And of course, this area through here, I think you have made a monument here that will be here for a while. And I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and appreciate what you've done.
Being the historian that you are, Mr. Blackwell, I'd like to ask you a question. I'll get your attention anyway. You said that along about 1800, the county was organized, I believe. Was Rufus Beach there? I just wanted to know. We have several people we'd like to recognize, and I'm certain that I will leave some folks out just as surely as I started this process. First of all, from the Call News, we'd like to welcome the Call News with us. South Alabamian, Mike Breedlove, Dr. Champ Bowley. Is that person here, Dr. Bowling? Let me, mother of Mrs. Ruth Bowling has been a dedicated supporter of the work here. Mr. Bobby Ferris, back in the back here, who represents the Mark Washington Electric Membership Corporation. That organization donated a refrigerator, a stove, 12 chairs, 2 tables, and Bobby's laboring ability for the next year, right, Bobby? Is that right? Mr. Bobby Trash, good to have you with us. So our appreciation to Olin Chemical donated some $400, and several other businesses have donated cash, as well as objects for fundraising events. Seba Geige has donated all the tables, other than the 2 that were donated by Clark Washington Electric Co-op. They have sent us many items that we have sold at other yard sales. Also, I'm told that today the United Methodist Church in St. Stephen's made a donation of $100 cash, so we're proud of that. Let's give a hand to all these folks. I want to recognize some other folks. We have with us our District Attorney, Mr. Bobby Cahey. Bobby, would you stand for a minute? He is the best looking district attorney in this district. No doubt about that. You agree? Leonard's the best looking commissioner in this district. We also have representing Senator Pat Lindsay's office. Senator Lindsay serves some 8 counties, so he can't be everywhere at one time. But Elmer Gantry is here representing his office. Elmer Avery. Elmer Avery, I'm sorry.
Yes, Pat was, he wanted to extend y'all, he said he was sorry he couldn't be here, but he had meetings, but he wanted to let you know he was going to be sending you a donation, and any way he could help, just feel free to contact him. He'd be glad to help in any way he could.
Thank you. Now for the unveiling of some plaques, Mr. Coleman Mosley and Reverend Nadine B. Walton.
Nadine, I want to explain to you why these chairs all towards your back. We were anticipating a lot of athletes here today, and they love the back row, so that's what do you know?
You know, one reason that we have this part of the program today is because there are some people who believe we need to be specific about things. And I'm one of those people. You know, the Bible says that God is love, but it doesn't just leave that thought hanging somewhere out in space. It says God loves us. And it says we ought to love one another. It also says that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, but it didn't just leave it somewhere out in space, maybe sometime or someplace it happened. It said that there was a specific young woman named Mary who was a virgin. Y'all here? And at a specific time in history, in a specific place, she gave birth to a specific baby whose name was Jesus. The Bible says that he died later on, and it's hot, so I'm going to make it short. But what I'm trying to say to you is that the Scripture and the things that are unveiled there is not just some fable in some far-off, distant place, in some never land. There were specific things that happened to specific people. And when we begin to talk about raising money for this wonderful facility that we are here to dedicate and celebrate the ribbon cutting today, we begin to think about how could we best raise money and do it in such a good way people would feel good about it. And you know what we decided? Everybody who has had a part in this, you know, Jesus said for us to feed the hungry too. And what we do as Christians, we say, well, oh Lord, how can I feed the world? We can't feed the world, Miss Mamie, but we can feed a bunch of elderly folks that are our folks. And so we said the best thing to do is give people a chance to make a part of the wonderful memories of some of our loved ones who have gone on, people who have served in the military, our churches that have been a vital part of this. Give them an opportunity to have their name of the people that they love and want remembered put in this wonderful place where people who use this facility can see that and know that, for instance, Midway United Methodist Church, the St. Stephen's Baptist Church, St. Stephen's, all the churches were involved, and St. James and all the others were interested enough in the welfare of our elderly people to not just talk about it and say, "Oh boy, I wish we could do something," but we could give and help make this possible. And so this plaque ceremony today is about specific people because we're concerned about a specific group of people, and that is the needy and the elderly that need to be fed right here. Now, I can't tell you, like Judge Turner and like some of the other folks that have been here for 100 years. And Rufus, 1800. I was not born and raised here in Washington County, but I didn't have anything to say about that. But I've been here 23 years. Somebody asked my missionary friend the other day, when was she coming home? She's in Mexico. She said, "I am home." When I go back to visit my relatives in Louisiana, sometimes they'll say, "When are you coming home?" And I say, "I'm already home." Because Washington County is home to me. Mr. Cole?
I think one of my earliest memories is of a community house years ago, well, just a few years ago, when I was 4 or 5 years old. The Masons would have a ice cream supper up here in the community house, what we call the community house, downstairs from the Masonic Hall. And they would send a mobile and get some of that bought ice cream and come up on the Southern Railroad. The ladies and wives would meet there and bring cake. And after a while, after the Mason would have a meeting, when they'd come downstairs to eat the ice cream and cake, build a layer of 4x5 and loving ice cream, I'd be outside running around. I started, Nadine, in the early age of praying that them old fellas would eat all that ice cream. That's why they had a back door at that community house there. After a while, Mom would call me around and say, "Come on, get you a soft ice cream." Needless to say, I've been loving ice cream ever since. One thing when we started this, we've talked about a community house here a lot of times. We saw the need here. Other communities have schools and other places to meet. You know, we can dream about these things and we can build castles in the air, but you know, we can't use these buildings until we actually start something. So last year we started on this building, and with a lot of cooperation from a lot of people and a lot of sweat from a lot of old people. It was the hottest summer last year I ever did see it. I never have seen people sweating like they did here on this building. Somebody that worked on it can verify that. When we did manage to build this building, but without the help of the people named that's on this plaque and the ones, by the way, we did make one more promise there that we would have a book there contain the names and address of the person providing the honor of the ones their names are displayed down in honor or memory of. And we hadn't had time to find a suitable book for that, but we will. Maybe we will get that book and we will have it displayed out in front of the schools there. But without the people that stepped out, donated money, we wouldn't have been able to build this building, and many more, his names are not on there. I've had one man to come by and donate to me, come by and give me $5 to come from SSI money. So he was interested in that. And another thing that I'd like to mention, we had in, I don't know, probably many of you have seen this, that we put out that we were going to have this plaque, you know. But we had him as a lasting, one of the words in there is a lasting, permanent remembrance of these deceased and the people that have gone on. You know, not just seem as our words, but as these donations come in and as we begin to have this plaque finished, I've seen some names on there, and I can think of these people that caused remembrance of them, and in my mind, I can see these people. They meant a lot to me as a youth growing up, and as I've grown older, they mean more to me. But this will be a place that they will be remembered. You can see the names here on this plaque. And we were wondering about we've been wondering about the size of the auditorium. This is the largest building, I guess, that we've ever had in St. Stephen for auditorium. And we were counting up, we were looking at the chairs in there. We have 60 chairs in here. We feel like if we can seat 180 people in this auditorium. So we hope that this building will serve this community, that all people in all ages for many years to come. We also, as Mr. Blackman spoke of Old St. Stephen, one of our promise was in there for this building would be to preserve the history and heritage of Old and New St. Stephen, and also, as someone has mentioned, to take care of the elderly.
This one is the roll of honor for the St. Stephen's Nutrition Center, and it says in memory of companies and in memory of individuals. These are companies and individuals that have given to this. This is in honor or memory of officials, veterans, churches, and other people who rendered services or materials donated. And this plaque is dedicated to the founding board of directors for the St. Stephen's Nutrition Center.
Nadine, let me say one more thing. We have plenty of vacant. Want everybody to see this and hear this. Very important.
I'd like to take just a minute to recognize Mr. Jim Davenport of the Lafarge Corporation. We mentioned him earlier, but he's the one that donated the floor. Now for some special recognitions, we call on Mr. Fleet Hollinger of the Human Services Department.
I don't need to say anything. I appreciate
Everybody get down there.
I'd like to call Mr. L.J. Wilson at this time. Williams, that
Representative Cordell, to our President, Mr. Beach, to our elected officials, to our corporate people, paint executives, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for coming to this dedication. We want to thank you for the entire board of directors for the tremendous job that they have did with Mr. Coleman Mosley, Mr. Joseph Aston, Ms. Dorothy Payne, Trudy Ashley, Ms. Roseanne Smith, and Ms. Mamie A. Johnson. We not calling no names, but we want to especially thank Ms. Donaldson, Fanny Donaldson. She gave the first $100 on the building. We especially thank Mr. Rufus Beach, our president, because when he came to me one afternoon, he told me, saying, you know, I just got a feeling that we need a building in St. Stephen for our elder people to go out, not just to eat, but they can sit down and talk and enjoy their last days while they live. It's not just eat and sit down like that. They can sit down and communicate with one another. But that's the purpose of the building. He had a lot of obstacles when he was going through this. Some people said they would never be dead, but he had the faith. We started off up here at this church up here, somehow or another we never did get to church. Next we went out to Mr. Smitty's milk place up here and we couldn't get that building. And finally went to Franklin and got a man up there and he decided that he would let us have a spot of ground down here. So we want to thank Mr. Mosley for giving us this spot, selling this spot, giving us this spot of ground. So Mr. Beach, in behalf of your hard work and dedication and determination and for the vision that you had, we, the members of the St. Stephen Nutrition Center, along with the people of the community of St. Stephen, Alabama, would like to present this plaque to you. Mr. Rufus L. Beach, the founder of St. Stephen Nutrition Center, St. Stephen, Alabama, April 14, 1991.
If you're going to plan to run for office now, you're going to have to learn to say more than that. And that way he'll have his mic, going to get his name in the newspaper, then he runs. Now Dr. C.F. Reynolds has a presentation. Dr. Reynolds.
First thing, I would like to congratulate you for this facility. I have a delightful function to perform, and that is to present to the St. Stephen's Nutrition Center $1,000. Check for $1,000 is for the purchase of an air conditioner, and it's being given by my aunt, Fanny Parker Johnson.
Dr. Reynolds, which office did you say you were running for? I'll guarantee you, all you have to do is learn how to write checks. You're like a good candidate. Now we also have some other special people here. First of all, our District 2 County Commissioner, Mr. Leonard Sullivan. Leonard, would you like to say a few words?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is my second social to be a part of today, and I don't know which one I like the best. We had a cookout for one of my grandnephews who just got back from Desert Storm duty, and we enjoyed that, and we're really enjoying this. And right up front, I would like to say that anything that I might say in the next couple of minutes, I appreciate all the cooperation I've had. I appreciate negotiating with Mr. Jim Davenport. He left it up to me as to how I spend his money. So I met with the executive board here, and we first agreed that we would do some groundwork. And then we changed it.
We also today have the honor of having with us the editor of South Alabamian and the man who served as representative from this district, Mr. Mike Breedlove. Mike?
Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate the introduction, and it's sort of hard to follow somebody like Leonard Sullivan who says, don't believe me, this is political, and I'm telling you. You got to pull up some bridges, man. Well, mine's not political either, I can tell you. I've had my turn, and we got a new man back in there now, and he's going to do us a good job. And next Tuesday, Jeff, we wish you good luck in Montgomery when the session begins. So we hope everything works out well for you. I do appreciate the opportunity to be with you for a short period of time this afternoon. It seems like it was just yesterday that I was passing through here campaigning against Jeff, and saw Mr. Rufus Beach out here with a sling blade. I don't know what he's going to do with one sling blade, but he was doing it. And it was just a real short time ago this whole place was full of weeds and trees and everything else. And all of a sudden, it's cleared, and just a few months after you began with the foundation, this place is up and it's really beautiful. And it's going to serve a great purpose for not only the elderly in the community, but other groups that can use it, like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and those type of people. So it's going to be a multi-purpose building, and it's really well laid out. I think you can use it for a lot of different functions. It took a lot of cooperation for this building to happen. It just didn't happen. We don't have a municipality here to help to provide tax monies to build something. So it took everybody contributing whatever little bit they could, even from their goal, and to push their leaders, governmental leaders, to help them the best they can. And I certainly appreciate what she's doing. We, in turn, bothered visitors Armstrong and Montgomery, and then in Camden, the Alabama Tom Beasley Regional Commission that provides the funding for the meals. So we were squeaking all the way around here. We finally, everybody working together has made this possible today. And I certainly thank you for allowing me to be with you to enjoy this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breedlove. While we're mentioning squeakers, I want to say that all of your board of directors and people of leadership here at one time or another have bothered me too about the funding and various things like that. And let me, the man that hasn't been mentioned yet, it's like the word in death was John Brown. So, John, your turn to have a... Now for some words of gratitude from Mrs. Mamie Johnson. Mamie?
It's so very, very good to have each one of you out here with us today. It's just so good to be able to see you and speak with you and fellowship with you. We just thank you for coming out and making this a successful day for us. But I do have one presentation that I did want to make, and I would like to say too that there are many here today who deserve much recognition. and many of them deserve gold medals pinned on them. As Ms. Mike Breedlove has already said, Mr. Rufus Speaks was one who had this dream and got us rolling and going on this. Mr. John Grimes, who was the chairman of our building committee, put many, many long, hot hours out here this past summer, along with Mr. Coleman, Mr. L.J. Williams, Mr. Joe Epston, and just many others of you too who came out and worked and helped make this building possible. But we felt like too that there was one other person behind all this who kept this going. And she did, as Mr. Breedlove has already said, she put in many hours that were above and beyond the call of duty. When we left out of our board meetings, many of us could go home and sit down and wait until the next board meeting. But she would leave and her work would just begin. She would, not only did she handle our secretary's job very well, but she spent many hours, as Mike has already said, making phone calls, writing letters, making personal contacts, going on trips to Montgomery and Camden. She went and purchased supplies. She helped work on this building. She headed up fundraisers. You name it, and she did. Whatever needed to be done, she was there working. And she also did this willingly and without any complaint, and always giving only her Lord the credit for all that she did. So it is with pride that I would like to present Ms. Trudy Ashley with the flag. It does say that this is presented to Trudy Ashley in appreciation for your hard work and dedication to the St. Stephen's Nutrition Center from the Board of Directors, 4/14 of 91. And it was a complete surprise.
The two people I want to recognize in the building, Chairman, they really made my job a lot easier. Was three of us. Mrs. Ashley, she deserves more than that. But Henry Lee Gold and Roy Gaston Smith. I want Henry Lee stand up. There's two men right here. Would you stand up and recognize Ms. Richards? She donated a quilt for us. Would you stand up and recognize?
All right, let's go.
Sure, you're going to pass those out. These certificates, appreciate it.
To you for what you have done. And from each of the board, each and every one of the board members, we would like to say thank you from the bottom of our heart. Also, we are serving refreshments as soon as the program is over, and you are invited to be a part of it. And we say again, thank you very much. And don't let this just the opening start. We do have a lot more to do. A lot more to do, so we can't stop now. We don't have a 25 meals right now. We would like to go far.
If the board could stand, just give them a good one. How good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity together, the Bible says. And I know that probably on the board they didn't always dwell in total unity because it takes a little conflict to get anything done. But, you know, the Bible also says where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think that this is certainly a milestone and a great stepping stone to not letting St. Stephen's perish. I've been here going on 3 years now as a member of the Methodist Church, pastor at Methodist Church, and I love St. Stephen's. It has a character of its own, and it has a special group of people. So I want to thank you for the blessing of being with all of you and for letting me have this prayer. Let us pray.
primary diagnosis, and I don't pull any punches, the primary diagnosis is mental retardation. They either are not able to be maintained in their own home, or they have not been able to be maintained in custodial care elsewhere. Some of them have come to us from institutions, and that's the reason for group homes. We think that we can do a better job for a small group of people in this type of facility than can be done in an institution. Everybody knows I'm a capitalist. I've cheated, I've blackmailed, I've cajoled, I've done whatever was necessary to do the little bit that I have been able to do. But the reason that our legislature, and you voted for them or against them, whichever way the ball rolled for you, has determined that group homes are more economical to maintain a single individual than is an institution. Whether or not this will be proven to be correct in the long haul, I don't know. It's pretty much experimental, even in the building of this facility. Our architect, Bargain and McKee and Sims from Montgomery, our contractor, Lester Scarborough from Grove Hill, they had no real history of building this type of facility to meet the standards of people who really might not hear and understand the word fire, or really might not hear and understand the word that someone who is inappropriate to the facility has come in. The use of the bathroom is not normal, perhaps, for them. So a lot of things had to be looked at as we went into this thing. There was some precedent set, but in a way, it was somewhat limited. And if you find things that you feel are inappropriate, that you'd like to see different, tell us. We'll see what we can do about it. Because it's really a sort of a pioneering experience to build this type of facility. That's really about all I want to say about it. I did not read the protocol on dedications. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm just winging it and doing it the way it seems appropriate to me. And you can comment on that later, too. I've asked Dr. Petcher, who's an ordained minister in the Church of the Brethren, come on in, and one of Washington County's treasurers in the medical profession, to say a few words if you'd like to first, and then give the invocation.
I really haven't prepared anything to say, but I think that the work that's been done by many of you, as I look at Dan and Terry and many of us who, I don't know how many years ago, met at the town hall before
January 1970.
And I think all that people had was a dream, wasn't it? And this is just another part of our dream that's come true. And the dreams are things that are out there in the future, and when people dream and then they're willing to work as hard as Dr. Ramsey and many of the people have, that can come true, and we need to remember that. Again, I think that the things that have happened have been very much a blessing to Washington County and a blessing to a lot of individuals. I sometimes talk to people about, they say, well, a man is in the free ministry. That means he's not getting paid to preach. And I say there's nothing free. And this didn't come about because of anything free. It came about because of a lot of hard work. And as we dedicate it to the glory of God and also to the good of our fellow man, let us remember that I think that the way that people can serve God the best is in serving their fellow man. And this is one of the indications and one of the ways that it's done. Will you pray with me? We thank you this day, our Father, for all of the good things that you do. We thank you for the land in which we live, where people of responsibility do care about the people that they are to serve. And we realize that we live in the greatest country on the face of the earth. And yet may we realize also that its greatness comes because our country was founded on Christian principles. And when we forget those principles and stray from you, then those are the days in which our country has trouble. We thank you for each person who has had a part in bringing this new home about. We thank you for those who raised the money and did all the planning. We thank you and pray a blessing particularly on the workmen who helped build this, and we realize that they have done a very excellent job in their building. And now that this is done, it becomes the task of others to bring it to its most useful state.